Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. And today's episode is part two of two episodes of a conversation that I had with Olaf Hermans from the Netherlands. He's a brilliant man with really great insights into the nature of organizations. And I think if you've seen the first episode, you'll know that. But if you've not, let me suggest that you go watch the first episode and then come back and watch this as the second episode of my two-parter with Olaf Hermans. Enjoy the show. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Whereby the again to make or to precipitate the process, it's so easy when there is a focal object like the sandcastle or what I do a lot with table tennis. I'm a sports coach, and I play and I coach a very large group of youngsters, highly talented but also less talented, and they're all like in top of their on top of their game. And but it is the game that connects us. I don't have to know their families. So very often I only get to know their families and themselves, what they do at school, for instance, how good they are at school. I only get to know that only after 1.5 years or 2 years. So we pick a third object, and we focalize our shared passion into that, and that's where we grow. And it's up to the person to then say like, hey Olaf, I would like to invite you to my home and meet my parents or meet my family. But it's the safety is that they choose
Yes.
the moment to do that, and not I as a leader. I as a leader just say like, look, I give you a hole in the hole, a gap in the hole that you can jump in, and that you can bring everything that you want to bring to it, and with all your traumas and whatever your background is, I just created opening for you. And if you then later want to tell me, where that all comes from, and what your background is and so on, I will be happy to learn that, and I'm very grateful that you allow me into your world. But it's not a condition to have the deepest of connections together.
Right.
So you can build an immensely deep connection only on one shared, very unimportant thing like table tennis, and a growth path in that hobby for that kid who asked me like, Olaf, you're a champion, what did you do and how long will it take me to be better than you are? And I tell him, I said like, look, it can take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we'll see, but we will keep practicing as well. So there's this single focus sandcastle, strand beast, this obsessive thing, which is not an obsession, because as you say, we end at the end of the day and tomorrow we start all over again, but it's always the same thing. But then of course the friendship, kind of the scope of the friendship, grows over time, but it doesn't have to be from the beginning. I remember very well with children who came into my sports club, and the parents just brought the kid and they hoped to have found a hobby and so on. And I said to parents like, well, after 10 minutes of play, I think your kid has a talent. And they don't know that he just came in for an hobby. So I said like, well, I'm ready to invest so much in it if you're ready to invest in it. So it's a deal. It's a loyalty deal. So we can bring your kid, for the next 5 6 years. I'm willing to sacrifice my Sundays for him. That was a decision after like a few times seeing him play. And the parents said like, well, we will follow you in that wherever you go. I said like, okay, then we have a deal. But it was only like 4 years later that I was invited at home with them. Although we were like spending 15 to 20 hours per week together.
I had the exact same experience as the scoutmaster of my son's Boy Scout troop. And we had lots of families. We had during the majority of the time I was scoutmaster, we had about 35 boys. It was a large troop, and I had about 19 adults who were my assistants, and um, it was like running a large business, with.
So, yeah, it's a business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what I recognized was that I was not the answer to all the problems that the parents faced with their children.
no.
Scout troop couldn't. So And so we had parents who would drop their kids off and they'd show up in their soccer uniforms or something and at the meeting and then they'd go off to go do their grocery shopping and those kids didn't last very long. And
Mm.
we had well, I had decided with the board's approval that we should always wear uniforms because the
Mm.
uniforms generated a type of unity
Definitely.
and
It always
togetherness.
works.
And it and where we had different economic levels and different education levels, it kind of cast all of that aside. And I
Indeed.
and I would tell the parents, I said, if you want your son to get the value of this experience, then you need to be involved. You need to
Mm.
become this, join the board, join the committee, or become an assistant scoutmaster and work with me. And I will guarantee you that your relationship with your son will grow and become better than it will if all you're doing is dropping him off at activities.
That's it. Yeah.
And some could hear that, and some couldn't. And and years later, now, I mean, my last year of service, I think was 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. They're still operating by the same principles.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something about leadership which is I don't need to be your best friend, but I need to at
No.
least have an interest in your welfare.
Yeah.
And
Definitely. Yeah.
and I don't know what that means, and I don't know how you want to receive that interest, but still, I want you to know I have an interest in your welfare.
Yes. And I know that the impact of what we're doing here is not just on, a positive outcome of what we do together. I know that you will take a lot from this to the rest of your life. I know that, but I don't have to know how you do that. And everything you gain there is for you. I mean, that's and I don't have any merit in that. That is what you took from it. And what I have merit in is, of course, in making you a better table tennis player, or making you a better sandcastle builder. Okay, clear. There's my role, and that's what they pay me to do, or what I'm passionate to do. Either way, hopefully both. Yeah. No, it's it's as simple as that. But I think everything we have discussed here, if you listen, I mean, it's all rather controversial today. This is not mainstream leadership. Maybe it is for you and for me because we remember how it was, and we remember, and there's nothing weird about this, but it is weird in today's times. Reason whereof there is so much unsafety, narcissism, all these kind of things, and so on.
My my
Perceived.
my explanation of that is that all these things run in cycles, and we're at the end of a very long cycle of types of organizations which are running out of time and they're no longer going to function. And and the people like you're describing, like we're describing, they can come along and they can revitalize those dead institutions merely by the way they lead and the lead
Yeah.
the way that you're describing. And I think that's the message that needs to be heard here is that you may be in a dead organization. I mean, 25 years ago, I saw what was coming, what we're seeing today. And the question is, what do we do about it? Well, we need better leadership. We need better leadership, but not the leadership that is taught in business schools, which is all about
Mm.
running the organization instead of
Yeah.
leading the organization.
Maybe a few concepts before we probably. I suppose we're gonna approach an end to this conversation
We're
at some
close. We're
point,
close, but
there's a few things like I'm pretty good these days at helping organizations to map distrust. And so we're all in the trust business, but I always say, like, look, I can't help you improve trust in your organization. What I can do is take the distrust out. And
Mhm.
that's also a weird statement, because he said, like, look, as an advisor, I mean, trust is what people have to do themselves. I for many years, and that is something that has changed even since the last time we spoke, I always had the claim that thought it's arrogance almost, like that I thought how to, what quality relationships were and how to create those. And I always said that other people just maintain social relationships, but that is, of course, like, that's a scam. I mean, from my, because now I say the opposite. I say, like, no, everybody knows how to relate, but what I know is how to remove distrust from an organization so that everybody has a free space to create trust, and build the relationships that they want. So there is like this distrust, and that lies in the verticality. Because say, like, we want better leadership, I would say we want better relationships between people and the top. Uh, and that is something else than better leadership. I think that when we do leadership assessments, is your leader supportive, and does he favor your personal development, and so on. When we do employee satisfaction surveys, we will ask, like, look, are you happy with the contract, with your hours, with the facilities, with the climate, with the culture, and so on. And yes, 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 yes. But then when you ask, like, look, do you trust the leadership in your organization to do the right thing tomorrow, for the whole? Yeah, then, but that is measuring the verticality. When you look at the systems that we are building, also with my brother, there was really hierarchy there, but there was no real leadership, the way that you need someone who taps on your shoulder all the time and who knows you, and all that. But there is a hierarchy. So there is hierarchy with co-leadership. Everybody is a leader. I mean, everybody brings in his little part, and everybody is equally important. And that's also how my brother really felt it, and like how good leaders feel it. So there is actually, there is little leadership, but a lot of hierarchy. So because there is a hierarchy, like an order of doing things in a particular, importance, and what's the backbone and which are the branches, and so on. But what we see, of course, is organizations with a lot of leadership with low hierarchy. And so we have lost the benefits of hierarchy. And hierarchy is fantastic because that brings certainty and security. And what we feel now is that the verticality, the vertical relationship between people and the top and all the layers above them is not healthy very often, because they don't exist. Not because they are bad, because they don't exist. People want layers above them. And we have taken away hierarchy, but that's our brains are not programmed for that. What we don't want, we want in a hierarchical structure. We want no leadership, because then it means that we can pick the floor where we want to work, every day, and not that there's a leader who tells you where your floor is. But we want floors. We have my life, the bigger hole, but that is hierarchy. See? So I have dissident ideas about, I want more hierarchy and less leadership, for more sanity, for more safety.
It wasn't
Weird, of
long
course.
ago I would have disagreed with all that you just said,
Mm-hmm.
but now I don't, because I'm coming to see things differently than I have in the past. In some
Mm-hmm.
ways, I think what I've written about leadership still stands, but I think how we look at the way we structure work, the way we structure businesses, the way we structure society requires some hierarchy. It requires because um, it requires it in the best sense of what it means for there to be accountability. And if there's no accountability within the hierarchy, then the hierarchy's in trouble. But that's what I think is my issue isn't with hierarchy. My issue is with the way accountability is structured within it. Because what I see is that the higher farther you go up, the less accountability there is, and as a result,
Mm-hmm.
the less the people at the bottom who are so essential to the work of the company are able to do really the kind of work that makes a difference that matters.
Uh, so hierarchy is healthy, but there should be a leadership that tells you like that the flowing between the hierarchy is liquid. Anybody should be invited and say like, hey, here, come and sit at my end. Inverse empathy. Come and see my problem. Way bigger than yours at my level. But you're invited to come and sit at that level, and then you go back to your level. But then you have like this total picture of these levels. What leadership does is like, there's your spot. No. You just flow through the levels, and you're actually, the fact that there are levels makes you calm, because that means that there is indeed, in engineering there is really like layers, and all the good things are engineered. Yeah,
Because
yeah. So it's funny.
each level has its own hole, as we're talking
Yeah,
about, and
that's it. Yeah.
which needs there needs to be accountability there.
By the way, really interesting. We need to end this at some point. But system thinkers. I met Jan de Vis, a professor of system thinking, and he took an effort to read all of my work. And I said, Jan, good friend, meanwhile, said like even more different I from him than I from you, but the real system thinker. And I said like, look, Jan, I don't know nothing about system thinking, but I am clearly a system thinker, but not from that school of thought. Can you tell me? Can you do an effort in trying to understand my work and see, where the overlaps are, where I just used different words or whatever, or what I do different than, or where the complements are and so on. And he said like, to start off, I said like, interesting. I said like, you have a capability that system thinkers typically are not able to bring into systems. That is that you have the capability to unhinge people on the spot. So not like onward and upward, but upward and onward. I said like, that is like something that is like remarkable. So with your work, you attribute ownership, you bring kids to the strand, to the castle, and people to the assemblies, and instantly on the spot they are better people. So that is like something that is fabulous. I said that is typically something that. But I said like, in terms of your reasoning, I said like, what after a long reading of my work and listening to me how I work, he said like, you have a different definition of ownership and you have a different definition of meta. And I said like, explain. And he said like, Olaf, you work with an attributional definition of ownership, and whereas the whole world works with a structural definition of ownership.
Right.
And a structural definition of ownership is like, you can have task ownership, capital ownership, whatever, all kinds of ownership, but it is something that you need to deserve. It takes time to kind of, become an owner, either in terms of efficacy or in terms of assets, whatever. And say, Olaf, what you do is people come to the beach and you tell them like, look, from now on, you are in charge of this. And this is, so presence in your mind, presence is ownership. It's like, well, nothing in the world of systems and organizations thinks like that. It says like, you instantly give trust, you instantly give friendship, and truthfully do so. And I said like, that is amazing. So you just give it. So rather than asking like, how can we make people loyal? Well, maybe by giving them loyalty. Why don't we give it to them? Ownership, just give it away. Give it away. You have nothing to lose, and so on. I said like, that's crazy what you do. It's logical, but nobody does it. And then the other part, they said like, with meta. They say meta in our world, it is like, well, telling people that they have to see the bigger picture, and that generally lies at a different level of organization or of environment. Like you have a task, and then you have the organization, and then you have the environment, and that is all serve as a meta layer over. But that is like a functional definition of meta. Whereas what he said, Olaf, you define levels of meta at the very level themselves. So you say like, for instance, at board level, yeah, you have like what the board has decided, but what is really going on in the board at a deeper level and at a higher level. So he said like, at a particular level in cognition, you actually bring a meta within that level, not a meta between levels, but within a level. And so you have what's going on the floor, and then you have what's really going on the floor, but the same level, but it's the underbelly. And so like, and that is also fascinating, how you're able to operate parallel realities at the same level.
I really,
Okay, that was just his words. Yeah.
I think it's, I think it's really excellent. It really is. And if you have this idea and you're sharing this idea, you're seeding the ground for it to be adopted. And I think, given time, you know, don't die on this too soon. But given time, by telling this story, it will have, it will find its resonance in society. And I think that's what is true about all the worthwhile ideas that are emerging out of crisis and chaos and the things that we've been experiencing for close to 30 years. And and people are looking for
Yeah.
answers. And I think you have an answer that is really quite good. And
I want to share one with you, if I may.
yeah,
That is like a few weeks ago, I was talking to some intellectual people from Palestine. And with all the horror that they're going through. And we were talking about leadership. And they told me that they hoped, that they were hoping that a person would stand up like it used to happen in the past. And, like whether it's Napoleon or President X or Y or Z or Genghis Khan or whatever, there was always people who stood up to be leaders. And they asked me, like, do you think that's going to happen? Or they said, like, well, we hope that someone in our group of people exists who can lead the Palestine people again, like Arafat or whatever. And again, as such, I don't have sympathies as such for anybody more than for anybody else. But clearly, these people now have a challenge. And I was very calm with them. I said, like, well, I don't see that happen. So, because I think international structures have now evolved in a way that, it's very hard for individuals to stand up. So everything has become systemic. So I told him that my best gift for them would be a strand beast of mass conversation, that we can unleash in their population, so that the entire people can assume co-leadership as a process, and not as a person or a set of traits that anybody has, or and of course they had to listen to that. For them it was kind of, but they are intellectuals, and they try to follow the reasoning, and they say, like, well, the only way to beat the system is with leadership as a system, the leadership system, not the leader or the leader. And that system is a system of conversation that addresses concerns about the forward movement of the whole plus one, your whole plus a little bit bigger, and invite people to hold their own activities, at least for now, and contribute to something bigger, so that you get a Newtonian mass, a big castle, one big castle. And they kind of liked that. But I said, like, the only thing is, and I'm really sorry, I had to tell them that it was not ready yet to be deployed. It's in a way, I'm just doing there. Also for you, important to know that there is no real commercial version of what I do at this moment operable. All the aspects of it I test every day with groups of people over longitudinal, stretches of time and so on. So we test all these parts, and it's because there's a lot of grounded theory. There's a lot of inductive steps that we make. So from observations about motivation, from control behaviors, and so on, we try to think of a big system that kind of can all facilitate that and trigger that and orchestrate that. But these are inductive leaps. The design of that system and every step you make, you need to check with every people whether that inductive leap is not like, because you can never make something bigger from something smaller unless you are very, very, very careful and backed with a lot of theory. And so therefore, this is a grounded theoretical process of building this machine. because we can't test it. There is no empirics in this. We need to design it from the ground up, and it's the same like with the strand beast. Nobody has ever done it before, so the man needs to build it himself. With his own. He brings science together. He brings his own science to it. So I told them that I asked for forgiveness. I told them that this is what I hope to bring to the human race, and to so many places of distress, albeit organizations with bad leaders, or countries that are under siege, or people that are under siege. So it was a very beautiful meeting, encounter with these people.
Great
They were in Vienna.
What a great conversation you had. And
yeah, it was an honor.
I mean, we're going on. So I think what I'm going to do is turn this into 2 episodes, because I don't think we're done. I don't think we're talking. I think if you got some time, I'd like to continue this, talk about this at the larger whole level of world, because I think what I see you saying is what I see as getting people to focus on their local community, because what the media and the information sector wants us to do is to focus on the global.
Yeah.
But the global without anything to do about it other than to kind of suspend our curiosity, suspend our judgment, and just listen or watch, keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. And I really think that the secret to what we're moving into is for people to say, how do I go take care of my neighbor?
Yeah. I know that's your vision. I think where the truth is, you're right, and wrong is a big word, but I believe in the global in the local. So the global in the local means that we still build the biggest sandcastle on that beach, and that is a global thing. It's a global effort with everybody.
Right.
So we're not gonna fragment our efforts. So there is something like an aggregation going on there. It's not just local and all colors and not by force, but by voluntary. So it means that a local community is still able to make its mark both inside that community, because everybody feels proud to have contributed to it, but also outside that community. So there needs to be something. And when we spoke about last time about the hire company with 70,000 people, I'm not a fan of splitting holes in pieces. I'm a fan of expanding a hole plus one layer, a hole a little bit bigger than yours. So I'm not going to make a hole smaller and to make it easier for people. I'm going to give you your place in the sandcastle, and anybody will find his place, but this is the whole castle. So yes, I'm a local. I believe in your local the principle of local, but I do believe in the globalization as a process in that local community.
I agree with you. And the way I see it is that I see it from the perspective of what I'm doing, which is I'm having global conversations. I'm talking with people all over the world, but we're really are talking about what is happening in their world where they live. And I am interested in learning what they are doing where they live, because when they are able to say something here, someone is going to hear that, and there's going to be a reverberation to some other community. I heard this. Why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? That's why this is a global conversation for local leaders. I understand the global there's a micro global, which is the whole of
that's it.
Then there's the macro global, which is the entire planet. And that's really what I mean by and I can tell you that I am humbled by what I see, what I see happening. When I wrote my book, Circle of Impact, in the introduction, I said that my purpose was to move people to take personal initiative to create impact in their local communities. That's my purpose.
Perfect definition. Yeah,
And when I
perfect
was
definition.
asked what your goal, my goal was, I said that my goal is to move 1% of the world's population to take personal initiative to create impact in the local community. And I was then asked, well, how are you going to do it? I said, I'm not. It has to
Mhm.
happen at the local level. But then I realized, obviously later, that that's what I'm actually doing. I'm encouraging everyone that's watching this video to say, I am going to go um, be a person of trust in my community.
Yeah,
And I'm
true.
going to go find people that I can support as they
Mm.
try to build their sandcastle. And I'm going to say, we can build a bigger one. We can build a better one. But we need to do this together. And I do find that that's the hard thing to communicate, because people are so used to starting things on their own and being dependent
Yeah, that's your small
on
castle.
all,
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
You need to have the courage to take initiative, but also to abandon your initiative for a bigger initiative, and that's the
that's not,
consolidation. And that's what Mintzberg, also Henry Mintzberg, says. Like, look, everybody takes initiative these days, but there is no consolidation of initiative, and that's indeed something that we can resolve or dissolve, dissolve with mass conversation.
yeah. So I think what you're talking about is really important, and I hope you find a way. I hope people find a way to find you and learn more about it, because I think it's a
I'm at the point.
it's a
Yeah.
revolutionary it's a revolutionary perspective.
Well, and to take it one step further, I think last time you asked me like, what can we do to to promote it or to bring it further? I'm really now at the point. This week, next week are really important to make the mechanics of the beast transparent, and to share it with people, at least already with an in crowd, to which I certainly count you. So it would be an honor if you at some point would want to look at the Lego blocks of good conversation, like the 15-minute the cooker, the conversation cooker, not an egg boiler, but a conversation cooker.
Sure.
But also how people can build blocks, because you can build conversations, of course, the way you like, but also extend conversation. But how we suggest people to have a particular conversation to make something where they can say like, no, I'm going to make something else, or override that and so on. But the mechanics, like how people are made to think about what to have conversation, because we're always trying to kind of bring the subconscious out, but for that you need to provide structure. So what we do is nothing more than project the structure of their own subconscious, and then they actually find it very easy to navigate their own way around a conversation with their subconscious, once they know what the structure of their subconscious is. So it is not that we want to steer the conversation among them, but we simply want to provide them with the fabric which actually they got in their minds from birth. We have such an incredible mind for conversation. But if you don't provide people with the sophisticated structures and layer and fine grain of our capability to have conversation, then we talk about the weather and children, which is a good two fantastic topics, but it won't build sandcastles. But see, so we people in a way need a little bit of help to get a conversation going, and then they're off. I
Great.
mean, people like yourself and I, we have this kind of background. We are kind of trained to think and have conversation like about a topic and really add something to it, and take something from it. We both gain from this. I did. But it is something that all people need to be trained in. So tutorials on YouTube on good conversation, without leaders. So you can select your own facilitator and so on, because that's also something that we have grown since the last time. The evolution of mass conversation since the last time we spoke. Last time I told you that there was still the need for a facilitator. And today I say, yeah, there is a need for a facilitator, but people can select that person themselves. So today it's more kind of like, who keeps score. But everybody is just a participant until the moment that you choose to be a facilitator. And then you have a different role. And then, okay, you get a tutorial and so on. So that makes the model even more scalable than it used to be, so that we don't have assigned facilitators anymore. Okay, just to tell you, but it would be great. I will inform you over the next weeks about that.
Okay.
It would
I
be
I
fantastic
look
if
forward
you
to
would
seeing
just
that.
all your wisdom and experience and intuition and say, like, look, Olaf, here are the holes in your hole. Huh? Yeah.
Well, we're demonstrating what actually you're talking about.
Yeah, we're demonstrating that. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Olaf. Thank you all for watching. I hope this has maybe disturbed you enough to think more deeply about the way things operate in your life, and particularly in the life of the business where you work, because there's a necessity for change, and we all know that. The question is, what are you willing to invest in to see that change happen? And a lot of that is not being a protester, not being defiant. It is simply being a person that other people recognize as trustworthy. And then lots of things can happen because you invite them in and you give them gratitude for the exchange of trust that you have. And from then on, the combination of leadership that happens in that moment is really quite beautiful. And I think both of us have seen that and experienced that, and would love to see more of that in the world today. So thank you for watching, and we're going to do this as 2 episodes, so you'll hear more of this as we go forward. Thank you a lot, and
Enjoy it. Thank you so much.